Endocarditis is an infection of the endocardium. This is the inner lining of your heart chambers and heart valves. Endocarditis generally occurs when bacteria, fungi, or other germs from another part of your body, such as your mouth, spread through your bloodstream and attach to damaged areas in your heart. If it is not treated quickly, endocarditis can damage or destroy your heart valves and can lead to life-threatening complications. This is Brian Herndon. He has 2 kids and a wife. Sadly, a few years ago, his life was held out on a thread as he suffered from bacterial endocarditis. I was fortunate enough to talk with Mr. Herndon about his experience with endocarditis and his various obstacles and successes throughout. Was there a moment you realized something wasn't right?
When my family noticed that I was becoming delirious and not able to get up out of bed or do anything over the course of the first few days when I was sick.
What was going through your mind as you were rushed to the hospital?
By the time I was taken to the hospital, it was by ambulance, and had already been passed out for a day or so at home.
You weren't totally passed out.
No.
You were delirious.
Delirious.
He was delirious.
So I remember.
We noticed why we called the 911 the day I did that was he was starting to slur his speech.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why that was the sign that scared us. And so by the time he got in the ambulance, yeah, he was out of it. And then when he got to the hospital, they intubated him. So he really doesn't remember any of that.
While you're in the hospital, what occurred?
Well, it took them a few, 3 or 4 days, I guess, before they figured out what I had.
Right, you were intubated for about the first 4 days.
Right, so I don't remember
and
any of that.
he was septic, so all they could tell is there was infection through his body.
Right.
It took Centera about 10 days to figure out where the source of the infection was. That was in the heart. And then when they realized that, we realized that one night he was in surgery the very next day, as soon as they realized it.
Endocarditis is a highly costly surgery and hospital stay due to the difficulty and length of the surgery. Mr. Herndon was blessed to have the only doctor in the area who could perform such a surgery immediately, thus saving his life. And do you remember anything that happened in the hospital, or were you told most of it?
I was told most of it because I don't remember much at all till closer to the end of my stay.
Yeah. Oh, and then after, did we go into, so then when he was in the hospital, once they figured out, right, then he had heart surgery. He was in the hospital a total of 7 weeks.
Okay.
From this.
And then he had a pacemaker placed?
Yes.
Yeah, so the heart surgery had replaced the one valve, part of the aortic root, and put in a pacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And was that before the strokes, or?
And no, so he had strokes
I think at home.
while, yeah, they're not exactly sure when. They may have been before he got to the hospital. Probably were before he got in the hospital while he was there very sick. He had 4 mild strokes and 1 sort of medium stroke. And the medium stroke is what caused vision problems that's, still kind of we're dealing with today.
About 1/3 of stroke survivors experience vision loss. Most people who have vision loss after a stroke do not fully recover. Nerves from each eye travel together in the brain, so both eyes are affected equally. In Mr. Herndon's case, he suffered from diplopia, which is double vision. And was anything bothering you, especially while in the hospital?
No, the main thing, once I started getting better, I was just becoming more angry of why I was there and wanting, they were requesting for water and ice and other things, just getting the care that I wanted as I was coming out of all the medication. I was getting more aware of things I wanted and needed.
Well, they wouldn't let him have water because, some of the surgery, whatever, part of the recovery, don't let you always have water. And he was just like, that's all he wanted was just like to suck on a piece of ice, and they couldn't let you because of the
They're afraid I would
recovery.
choke.
And I was really frustrated. He got very frustrated by that.
And what emotions did you feel while in the hospital?
Just emotions that I remember from when I was out of the just confused, and time was lost. I really wasn't sure if I'd been there a day or a week. I think people would tell me I'd been there a while, but it really was lost on me. So just the confusion, just confusion.
Through being in the hospital for 7 weeks, how often were you going back for checkups and making sure everything was still functioning?
Well, he was inpatient for 7
Yeah.
weeks.
Inpatient,
And then outpatient.
Oh, after
Outpatient.
you
It
went.
was-
Well,
It was monthly.
afterwards he had we had to get someone come to the house,
Yeah.
a nurse come to the house for about a month to administer some of the treatment, or about 6 weeks after. But he was going, he followed up with the infectious disease doctors, heart doctors, and eye doctors, probably about once,
monthly
Yeah.
at first.
I guess maybe only once a month, but after he got up. But that was for probably a good 6-8 months.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
first
he
year was
went
once a
every month,
And
yeah.
it went to 6 months.
Mhm.
First 6 months.
What were your early challenges after leaving the hospital?
Mostly just basic function, learning to walk again, learning to get up, fatigue, was very tired.
He couldn't sleep upstairs. He had to sleep
slept
on the first
downstairs.
floor because he could not walk upstairs. Even though he'd had a week of inpatient rehab at the hospital, that was his last week in the hospital, he couldn't go upstairs. So he slept downstairs for probably 2 to 3 weeks before he could actually do stairs. And then, just gradually, all the mobile stuff, just holding things,
Mobile stuff. And then
walking.
I had part of when I was ill at first was I had some organ failure. My kidneys had failed and they were coming back, so I was anemic for a while, so I was very cold. It makes you cold. So I was cold a lot, and that was hard to get used to because previously I was always been more of a hot-natured person, and I went to a cold-natured person. And that was hard to get used to. Wearing sweatshirts in the summer was unusual for me.
Mr. Hernan's rare case of such severe endocarditis and multiple strokes caused him to suffer from the most extreme symptoms possible. However, many people recovering from serious forms of endocarditis that require heart surgery suffer from the loss of ability to do motor functions and must relearn them. Specifically, what did you have to do as far as rehab?
I did a few weeks, 1 week at the hospital, and then when I got out of the hospital, I did about 4 months with Centera at the YMCA, outpatient, where I was going.
Did you go 3 times a week?
3 times a week.
3 times a week.
Going there, was just all physical therapy.
Yeah, you had actually when you first got out, you had physical therapy 3 times a
somebody
week
come
and
here.
occupational therapy 3 times a week. 2 different things. So he was going 6 times a week, and he did physical outpatient there for probably about 4 months, and it comprised of just mainly just motor skills. It was mostly motor skills. It wasn't a whole lot of mental
Right.
stuff. It was mostly all motor skills, from fine motor to gross motor skills.
How did this disease affect your family?
It was frustrating. It was a challenge for everyone.
We had, let's see, they were, what were they, 14 and 10, so 14 and 10-year-old kids. It was pretty, kind of scary, certainly for them, having in the hospital that long. I was spending a lot of time in the hospital, so they had someone staying here with them, and just, it was scary, but then super happy to have him back, but then he wasn't 100%, so the whole thing, it's a pretty, it definitely rocks the family, but makes you appreciate
I took a
things.
few years off from working because I was working as a teacher when I got sick. I stayed out for medical leave with the city of Norfolk, and then stayed a second year just on a recommendation of doctors to stay out, and then I went back for a year. Previously, I'm not back now, but I did go back another year. But mainly just the fatigue and the fatigue affected everybody.
Overall, endocarditis completely affected Mr. Herndon and his loved ones around him. He was no longer able to financially provide for the family nor physically go out and pick his kids up from various sports and clubs. Mr. Kernan constantly felt tired, and from this, he at times grew very frustrated. But, like many who have suffered from this illness, he was able to grow stronger through the love that filled the air around him. What long-term side effects do you currently suffer from?
Most of my physical abilities and strength has pretty much come back to where it would have been or where it should have been for my age. The only real effects I have some vision issues from the strokes I had. It affected some of my vision, and I've corrected some of that with surgery, but some of that is still ongoing. It's just frustrating with when you're
You get like
physically
double
fit, you
vision.
get
Yeah,
double
you get
vision.
double vision.
I tilt my head a lot to straighten things out, so it's a challenge, but I'm getting used to it. I don't know if it's getting better or if I'm just getting used to it.
Get used to it.